Hey everyone, Spicy Toast Gaming here, and thank you for tuning in to our Lux Guide for Path of Champions. If you appreciate all of our Path of Champions content, definitely like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So we're going to start off with a brief overview of the champion, just so you can know if this is a champion you want to invest your time as well as resources into. So up first we have Spells Focused. Lux is a very Spells Focused deck. All of your star powers revolve around casting spells and getting benefits from that. Now, Lux is also actually a unit-focused deck. Those spells you're casting, they're either generating units, or they're being able to generate powerful buffs and effects that need your units in order to actually end the game. Rather than just focusing purely on spells, it is actually a bit more of a balanced playstyle, where you're needing to prioritize keeping your units alive, as well as playing your spells. Now, next up, it is combo-based. Now, there's a couple different things I mean with this. For one, it is a different combination of spells and units that you're trying to weave together to make a viable strategy. But you're also trying to combo different spells at specific times in order to end the game. So quite often, you'll actually be holding off on resources and waiting to combo them together at the appropriate time in order to win the game. So if you like that sort of forethought and strategic planning, then this could be a pretty good deck for you. Now, we also have versatile builds. This is both in-game as well as your relic setup. So there's a bunch of different ways you can go with Lux in-game based on what upgrades you get, but you can also focus on some very different playstyles when you are at your relic setup screen. And that actually ties directly into our next point of not champion reliant. So you can go for some relic builds that rely heavily on getting your Lux on the board and using her to really rush down the enemy. Well, not really rush down, but once she's on the board, combo down the enemy. But you can also go for a much more passive build where you just never play Lux, focus on your deck, your units and spells, and just using them to end the game. And both of these builds are actually quite strong and fairly balanced with each other. It doesn't feel like one is too overpowering over the other. So if you want to have that versatility in being able to focus on your champion, then Lux is great and offers you abilities to do that. But if you don't want to worry about your champion, don't care about having to draw them, and just want to focus on your core gameplay, you can do that as well with Lux. Alright, that's it for the overview. Let's go hop in game and better explain some of the points we touched on here. Alright, in game now with Lux, you see we do have her at level 30 with those 3 stars. Let's first briefly touch on the champion. So she is a 5 cost with a 3/5 stat line, and she also has barrier. So you can play her and she'll be very good for either attacking that first round, knowing that she's going to have the safety to not die, or even work as a very strong blocker. Now, she is a little bit expensive, so you're not generally going to be playing her in the first couple rounds of a match, but normally she can still hit the board before you end the game. Now, her level up is I've seen you play 6 or more mana of spells. When I level up, create a final spark in hand. So that doesn't have to be all in one spell. You can play multiple smaller spells in order to level her up, or just one big spell to trigger that level up. Once she levels up, she goes to a 4/6. And now each time you play 6 or more mana of spells, create a final spark in hand. So this happens when she levels up, and then even after, she's still able to generate these. Now, her champion spell is Prismatic Barrier, so 3 cost burst. Give an ally barrier this round. So again, that barrier is reducing the next damage they take that round to 0. So you see, negate the next damage this unit would take. So a great way to try to protect your units. Now, those final sparks, 0 cost. They are fleeting, so you need to play them the round you create them. They have Overwhelm, so even if this spell kills the unit, any of its extra damage is still going to hit the Nexus, and it is slow. Slow is also a pretty big factor for Lux. Most of the spells that she's playing are slow. And what this does, deal 4 to an enemy. If there are no enemies, deal 4 to the enemy Nexus instead. So great way to deal some damage to the enemy Nexus, or also works as a good form of removal. So with that in mind, let's go take a look at these star powers. So up first, each round, the first time you play a spell, refill mana equal to its cost. Now this is the 3rd star version of this. If you just have the 1 star, then it's going to refill spell mana equal to its cost. Now spell mana is capped at 3, so essentially you can only get 3 mana back, and it's just going to be spell mana. Whereas this, the 3rd star version, is just refilling mana. Now that mana can be used for anything, including then playing units. And then the more mana you have, the more expensive spells you can play. So you could play like a 6 cost spell if it's the first spell in the round, and you'll get refilled all of that 6 mana back. So this is a very powerful effect, because essentially you can play one spell for free every single round, and this is very good for triggering Lux's level up condition. But it's also very good for your second star power, that +1 starting mana, and now when you play 6 or more mana of spells, so the same condition as Lux's level up, create a 0 cost Golden Aegis in hand. So you see right here, normally this is a 5 cost, but if it's generated from the second star power, it's going to be 0 cost, slow, give an ally barrier this round, and rally. So that rally, you're able to gain the attack token so you can attack again this round. Now this is not fleeting, so when you generate these, you can actually stockpile them in hand, which is a large amount of where Lux's combo potential comes from. You might generate 1 or 2 of these in the first couple rounds, and then just hold on to them until right around that 5 to 6 mana mark, where you then attack 4 or 5 times in a round because of all these Golden Aegis. You just rush down the enemy and absolutely dominate. Now these star powers play very well with Lux because they have the same level up effect as her. So if you have Lux on the board, she's going to be generating those final sparks in order to deal more damage to enemy units or the Nexus, and you're also generating these Golden Aegis. And these Golden Aegis, they give an ally barrier, so you need to have a unit on the board, and it's letting you rally, so attack again. So if you don't have units on the board, then this is kind of useless. So while you are playing your spells, you do want to have a pretty wide board. Normally you want to hold off until you have like 3 or more units, and then you can start rallying with these spells and try to rush down the enemy. But the first couple rounds, you want to be fairly protective of your units until you hit that combo breakpoint where you decide to pull the trigger and end the game. Alright, let's go take a look at her starting deck. So up first we have Mage Seeker Conservator. So 1 cost 2/2 from that Studded Leather and Philosopher's Stone. So when I'm summoned, draw 1. And then Last Breath, create in hand a random 6 or more cost spell from your regions from a region other than Demacia. So you pretty much get a random 6 or higher cost card. Overall, this is just a very solid card. It's cheap, decent stat line for its cost, gives you some more draw, generates another spell when it dies. Just overall, a solid card. Next we have the Bright Steel Protector. So 2 cost 2/1, play, give an ally barrier this round, and this also has barrier. So really good for trying to protect your units. You can play this to block and then give another unit that barrier as well. A very defensive card, but just helps you early keep your units alive. Next up then we have the Mage Seeker Persuader. So 2 cost 4/5, so pretty crazy stat line from that Dragon Tooth and Giant's Belt. Grant me 1/1 and Challenger once you've played a 6 or higher cost spell this game. So this card is pretty crazy, ridiculous stat line for its cost, but then it gets even stronger and gets Challenger once you play that 6 or higher cost spell. So again, plays very well into your game plan. Next we have the Lorient Prodigy. So 3 cost 3/5 with Challenger and that Studded Leather. This card is just okay. It's, fine. Having that Challenger gives you some amount of removal, which can be nice, especially when you are rallying and you're just attacking multiple times. Often a good idea to give this unit barrier and then attack and let this challenge any blockers that they have. So again, you're trying to protect and save your units. Next up then we have Succession. This is one of, if not the most important card in your deck. So 3 cost slow, again. Summon a Dauntless Vanguard, and this has Sapphire Crystal. So that Dauntless Vanguard, 3 cost 3/3, giving you a unit from a spell, not too bad. But this is helping your ramp speed up because of that mana gem. So normally you want to re-roll your opening hand to get one of these. You want to play it as soon as possible because it just is helping you speed up and play your Lux much faster. Also, if you're using Chemtech Duplicator, you want to get to that 6 mana as soon as possible. So this really helps with that. A really important card and one of, if not the most important card in your deck. Next up then we have Vanguard Sergeant. So 3 cost 4/6 from that Savage Shield. Again, just a solid unit and stat line. But then when I'm summoned, create a 4 Demacia in hand. So 6 cost slow again. Give allies 3/3 this round. So this is a temporary effect, but this is a 6 cost card. So when you play this, you'll then potentially level up your Lux. You'll trigger your star power to then get that barrier and rally. So this is just doing a lot for you. Really solid card and really fits into your game plan of focusing on units and spells. Next up then we have the 4-cost Mage Seeker Inciter, 4-cost 4/4, grant me 2/2 once you've played a 6-cost spell this game, and it has that challenger. So again, solid unit that just gets even better once you play a 6-cost spell. Then at 5 mana we have Lux, and then at 6 we have Remembrance. So 6-cost slow again. I cost 1 less for each ally that died this round, and summon a random 5-cost, it's a little cut off there, but 5-cost follower from Demacia. So this can get some cost reduction if you have a lot of your units die. That's normally not going to be the case. And this also has Hextech Fabricator, so you give one of your units a random common item. This is fine, just a solid 6-cost slow spell for you, and it's another spell that generates a unit. Overall, she has a very well put together starting deck, and I don't think there's any cards that really feel too out of place. Really, this is just a excellently made champion, star power, and starting deck. They all play together very well. Let's go take a look at the champion level ups, just so you can know when you're going to get some of these items. So up first, level 2, the Mage Seeker Conservator gets that studded leather, so it goes up to a 2/2, not too bad. At 3, the Bright Steel Protector also gets Locket of the Iron Solari, very nice, giving you 2 barriers essentially when you play this card. Then at 6, the Mage Seeker Persuader gets that Giant's Belt, further increasing its stat line. At 9, Remembrance gets that Hextech Fabricator. To be honest, not that big of a deal. At 12, the Mage Seeker Inciter gets that Skirmisher's Saber, so again, giving you a bit of removal. At 15, the Prodigy gets the Studded Leather, so it goes to a 3/5. A little sad, normally at 15 you get one of your bigger upgrades, and that upgrade's just fine overall. At 18, Succession gets the Sapphire Crystal, so this is going to be a very big upgrade for you. So you're really going to feel much more powerful right in this level range, because 18 you get that, 19 you get your second rare relic, and then at 20 you get that Hero's Welcome, so you're guaranteed to draw a champion at the start of the game. So this is where you're really going to pick up and feel very strong. Next up though, 21, your Sergeant gets the Savage Shield, so further improving its stat line. Then at 24, your Persuader gets that Dragon Tooth, and remember this also got a Giant's Belt, so pretty crazy stat line for just a 2-cost. And then last up, 27, your Mage Seeker Conservator gets the Philosopher's Stone, just giving you a little bit of extra draw. Overall, all the upgrades are pretty nice. Most of them aren't that big of a deal. Now this getting the Sapphire Crystal, this is going to be the most impactful upgrade for you. All the other ones are just more of nice little bonuses to have. Alright, let's go take a look at the relic builds for Lux. Now, at the moment, my go-to build is running the Starforged Gauntlets, power if I'm Titanic, +1 starting mana, pairing that with the Luminous Orb, +3 health, and I can block elusives. You need this to get her to the 8 health to trigger that Titanic. Lux starting at 3 mana is actually very strong, because you're already trying to ramp up quite quickly, but since you start at 3 mana, you can try to play your Succession right here, round 1, so that this is giving you even more mana. And so while the +1 starting mana is good on everyone, this is actually exponentially strong since you can use it to get even more mana. So pairing those two together is actually quite good on Lux. And the Chemtech Duplicator, when you play a spell, if you have 6 or more mana gems, copy it with the same targets. Now, since you're getting to 6 mana so quickly, this is very good to add with this build. Although Chemtech Duplicator overall is just solid for Lux, you play her for 5 mana, the very next round this is going to be triggering, and so getting all of your spells to be doubled means you're triggering your star powers so frequently and you're just making a whole bunch of final sparks. Really solid upgrade for Lux if you're trying to focus more on a champion-centric build. Now, as far as other epic relics, I don't think any of the other ones are too impactful. Like, yes, you could throw on the Beast Within if you wanted to focus more on a passive Lux build, where you didn't need to have her on the board, just giving your allies that overwhelm, that wouldn't be too bad. But she doesn't really have any subtypes. Well, one of her units has Elite, but that's about it. So you're not really going to get that 1/1, but the overwhelm is quite nice. But honestly, the Beast Within, you could say that for just about everyone. If you wanted some more removal with your Lux, you can always go for the Arcane Comet. You'll be able to create this every round, as long as Lux is on the board. So 6 costs, so this can trigger your star powers and obliterate a unit or landmark. So if you just want to have a ton of removal on your Lux, this is a good way to go. Archangel Staff, round start, refill your spell mana. Just good to have more mana to work with, especially if you're going to be going with like an Arcane Comet. So pairing these two together, very nice if you're focusing on your Lux. Hymn of Valor, this can be okay. When I'm summoned, create a redoubled Valor in hand. It costs 3. So this is, again, another slow spell. With Lux, you're normally re-rolling pretty aggressively for your powers to try to get the one that all of your slow spells are doubled. Also with Lux, you quite often will run Chemtech Duplicator. So this could be decent if you paired this with Chemtech Duplicator. You played Lux on 5, and then at 6, you used your Hymn of Valor and Chemtech Duplicator to buff up your Lux or one of your other units to just absolutely ridiculous values. Blade Rack allies have Challenger. Now you do actually have a decent amount of Challenger in your deck as it is, but just making sure all of your units are attacking the right targets and you're just getting the best trades possible is quite nice. Very good if you want Lux to be a little bit more of a support build where you're still getting her on the board, but you're just having her support all of your other units. The Card Master's Gambit. Now this is actually one of the best relics for Lux. So 1/1, and when you win an encounter without taking any Nexus damage, earn 1 reroll. If you're wanting to play your Lux in a very passive build, you can just throw on really as many of these as you want, because getting those extra rerolls will just make sure you're getting the right upgrades from shops, the right powers, and just focusing on your Lux build overall. And then if you do end up playing her, you're going to have a little bit of extra stats, but this is a absolutely great relic for a passive Lux build. The Grand General's Counterplan. So round start, create a fleeting copy of me in hand. This can be good to pair with your Archangel Staff, because both of those will trigger at round start, the Archangel Staff giving you mana. And then this, when she's on the board, will essentially be creating her champion spell. So her Prismatic Barrier, 3 cost burst, give an allied barrier. Again, great for just trying to support your own units and make sure none of them are going to die. To finish off then, the Scourge's Stash, Plunder, I cost 2 less. The cost reduction for Lux is actually pretty nice if you can try to get her on the board a little bit early, especially if you're pairing her with some of the round start relics such as Archangel Staff and Grand General's Counterplan. So that cost reduction is actually fairly nice. And then the Troll King's Crown, if you don't have the Beast Within, playing your Lux and giving all your units Overwhelm is quite handy. Although, to be honest, normally you're attacking so many times that you don't actually really need the Overwhelm, especially when Lux is already on the board. Having the Overwhelm throughout the entire game would be very nice, but normally if Lux is on the board, you've already won, so the Troll King's Crown isn't quite as needed. Now that's it for the rare and epic relics I wanted to highlight. Let's go touch on some common relics you might want to use. So Banshee's Veil, just having Spell Shield to protect your champion, always nice to have. Lost Chapter, when I'm summoned to refill your spell mana. Again, very nice, just letting you play Lux and then immediately having some mana to play some more spells. Chameleon's Necklace, game start, create 2 copies of me in your deck. If you want to be sure you draw your Lux, this is quite nice to have. However, Lux is a 5 cost champion, so it's going to take a little bit before you can play her. So normally this isn't as needed because you have a couple rounds to try to fish for her and draw her out. It's not like she's a 2 cost champion that you need to be playing round 1. Starchild Staff, actually very impressive relic if you're going for a more passive build. Game start, heal your Nexus 5. Getting that extra healing every single round is quite nice and makes it so you never need to try to heal up at a healer. You can always cut a card to refine your deck down. So if you're going for one of those more passive builds, this is a consideration to have. But really, the common relic you want to use in most situations is the Z-Drive prototype. Start adventures with 2 extra rerolls, just so you can try to get those correct powers and upgrades throughout your run. Now that's it for the relics. There are plenty more that I didn't mention. I highly encourage you to play around, test some different builds, and find exactly what you like. There's so many different ways to build these champions, and so definitely experiment and find what works best for you. Alright, that's it for the in-game portion. Let's now go look at what powers you want to look for, what support champions might work well with you, and we'll finish out with her rankings. Alright, taking a look at powers here. Up first on the left, Sorcery, round start, refill your spell mana. This is one of the 2 most important powers to get. Just being able to play your spells at the start of every single round is really nice, always having that freedom, because then you can start playing really high cost spells very quickly. So you can play like a 5 cost spell at the very start of the game, and of course if you have her at 3 stars, all that mana is immediately refunded, so you can still play your other cards as well. This is a very nice upgrade to have. In the middle here, memory game. Round start, create in hand a fleeting copy of the last non-fleeting card you played. This works well with your combo playstyle of trying to plan ahead and really set up a game-winning combo. With Lux, you have some very powerful cards, and normally the ones you want to play several times, but you might not have enough copies. So being able to put in a little work to make it the last card you play in a round, so you get another copy of it next round, can actually be quite handy. And then last up here, slow but steady. This is the most important power to get for Lux. This is why you want to get so many rerolls. You're looking for this power right here. When you play a slow spell, copy it with these same targets. Now with Lux, you're playing a lot of slow spells. I believe every spell in your starting deck is slow, and then your final sparks you create when you level up are also slow. Also, the rally spell you're generating is also slow. So just so many spells that are going to be getting doubled by getting this. Really is the best power, just giving you duplication throughout the entire game. Always pick this up if you see it with Lux, and this is what you're generally always re-rolling, trying to find. Next up then, Vanguard Lookout, game start, summon 2 Vanguard Lookouts. With Lux, you want to have a fairly full board, and so being able to have 2 solid units at the start of the game is quite nice. Next then, reset, game start, create 3 Chrono Breaks in your deck. Now this is a little bit of an older photo. This has been reduced down to a common power. Those Chrono Breaks, they revive all your units that died this round and then give you a rally. So it can work very well for your combo playstyle. So it is a pretty good power to pick up. And then Domination, round start, rally. Since you are focused on your units and your win condition is just attacking continually with your units, being able to get another attack every single round, very nice to have. Last up then for powers, Crush, Allies of Overwhelm. Since you are focusing on your units doing damage, this is a nice power to get if you can. Not as necessary as it is on many other champions, because normally with Lux you're being able to attack so many times that it doesn't even matter if the enemy blocks you, because you'll just keep attacking until you win. But it is very nice to have, can help you end games a little bit faster. Fixer Upper, round start, give your weakest ally 3/3 this round. Solid upgrade to have, especially since you're trying to have units on the board, you're trying to keep them alive. This works well to heal up your weaker units. And then since you're not ending the game in the first couple rounds, you're going to get a good amount of benefit from this relic over the course of every single match. Last up then, Duelist, when you summon an ally, give it Challenger this round. Now you do have a good amount of Challenger in your deck already, but more the merrier, especially with some of the units you can give Barrier. Just trying to make sure you're using your units to take out the enemy threats. Alright, that's it for powers, at least the powers you want to get. Let's move on and look at some powers that you actually might want to avoid. Alright, here we have powers you don't need. Now here on the left, a legendary power they just introduced recently. It's a great power, but it really is terrible on Lux. So round start, reduce the cost of your first spell by 10. So essentially your first spell is going to be free. The issue is with Lux's star powers, the first spell you play is already getting refunded, and you actually want to be spending that mana because that triggers Lux's level up as well as your powers. Your second star power, that is. So having the first spell you play be free completely screws up the synergy of your star powers, and so this is actually bad to pick up for Lux and actively works against you. So if you see this, don't get excited if you're on your Lux, probably avoid it. Next up then, Elemental Winds. Your spells and skills deal 2 extra damage. Now this can be good if you are getting some removal spells that do scale with damage. So if you have those, then yeah, definitely pick this up. But if it's just the start of your run and you see this, you might want to hold off. With Lux, none of your spells and skills actually deal damage. They either are rallying, giving your units barrier, summoning units. None of it's actually damaging anything, and so by default, with your starting deck and star powers, this is essentially useless to you. Now, you can pick up removal spells, and that is a good thing to normally look for. So if you've done that, then yes, you can use this, but at the start of the game, probably don't want to grab this. Alright, next up then, Support Champions. Now with Lux, I will say she is very strong on her own. Her own starting deck is very well put together. So you don't really need to rely on support champions as much. She's very much a champion where normally you're just looking for the champion that gets the best upgrades for you to grab. So while I will give some suggestions for support champions here, for Lux, support champions really don't matter as much as many other champions. Up first though, units and spells. Some support champions just have units, some just have spells. With Lux, it's always good to try to get a support champion that has some units and spells in their support package. Next up then, removal and CC. So this is one thing that Lux is actually lacking. She can get good removal from Lux herself with those final sparks, but that's fairly late in the game. Having some removal to try to deal with annoying enemy units, such as like Zoe or something like that, can be very nice. Now you do have a lot of challenger units, so it's not like you don't have any removal, but removal spells would be good. And the same for CC or crowd control. Getting some spells that maybe will stun the enemy, or just having answers for what the enemy throws at you can be quite nice. So up first we have Swain. His support package has a unit as well as a good removal spell, and they're both pretty cheap and easy to play, other than Swain himself. So I think he actually pairs fairly nicely with Lux. And then we have Morgana. Again, she has a solid spell as well as a unit that comes with her, and she's going to be giving you some more CC to deal with annoying enemy units. Alright, that's it for some support champions. Now, there's obviously many other champions. This is definitely not an exhaustive list of support champions. In general, though, not as important for Lux. Next up then, some cards to look out for. So first, here on the left, Cythria the Bold. Attack, give other attacking allies 1/1 and fearsome this round. And I was able to find this with a Nomad's Medallion, so pretty strong card. And then it has a attack effect, buffing up your units. With Lux, you're normally able to attack many times in a single round, and so that attack effect would just keep scaling throughout the round, and this could really help you close out games right around that time you're trying to combo down the enemy, which is normally between 4 to 6 mana. Next up then, Falling Star, so 2 cost slow, so that's really good right there. Deal 4 to an enemy that attacked this round or is stunned. And then I also be able to find this with Elixir of Sorcery. Really good upgrade for Lux anytime you see that. And then with the slow, you're often going to be trying to get the slow but steady, so you could potentially have this go off multiple times, and this is a way to try to get a little bit more removal. So really doing a lot of things for you. Also, this is pretty cheap, so you can try to play this in the earlier rounds. With Lux, you're trying to play a spell every round to benefit from your star powers, so having some spells that will fit in for all the different level ranges is pretty good. Next up, Meteor Shower, so 5 cost slow again, so potentially this can be doubled. Deal 4 to an enemy and 1 to another, so trying to give you some removal, which is something you're lacking. And then Summoner's Stone, summon a random champion of my cost, so this is also summoning a unit for you, really just doing everything you want it to do. Last up then, Shock Blast, 6 cost slow again. Deal 3 to an enemy or the enemy nexus, and then 3 to another. So giving you some of that removal that you're really lacking. And then Elixir of Sorcery, copying me onto the same targets. The reason why that's so good on Lux is not only is a spell going off twice, but each one of those is counting as spell mana spent, even though you're not actually spending it twice. So both of those are able to count to trigger your star powers. So this can just really help you level up your Lux, make more final sparks, make more of those rallies, and it's just really solid for you to use. Alright, last up then, we have the rankings. So I think before level 20, she is a solid B tier champion. After level 20 though, she's definitely a solid A tier champion. You get a lot of good upgrades like we saw, right in that 18 to 20 level range. So once you have those, you are very solid. As far as regional rankings, I think Demacia is pretty much the most competitive region. And so I think she's pretty much tied. There's 4 Demacia champions, and I think all of them could be considered best in different situations. So I think she's about tied in power with the other Demacia champions, which is just another way of saying they're all very, very good. And I feel like if I put her above or below any of the other champions, that wouldn't really be accurate because there's just going to be situations where she's better than others and other situations where she's worse than others. As far as some pros and cons, she is very consistent, excellently made starting deck and star powers, and you can consistently win right around the 5 mana mark. And then she is also very versatile, both in playing her in-game, as well as the different builds you can set up with her. Really nice that you can go for a very champion-focused build, or go for some builds where you don't care about your champion at all. I absolutely love that. Then as far as cons, you are reliant on both your units and your spells. So if you have a match where you're just drawing your units, you don't draw any spells, that's really bad, or vice versa. Now that's normally not that much of an issue because you have a lot of units that give you spells, and you have a lot of spells that give you units, so normally it's not too much of an issue, but it can pop up every once in a while. Overall though, a very solid champion, and definitely one I recommend picking up when you have the opportunity. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this updated Lux guide. If you did, definitely like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day.